Hello again. I want to say hello to our LMN community. Once again, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Alfredo Hernandez, and I am one of the LMN community members. I'm also a LMN positive patient and a heart transplant recipient. And I also have the distinct privilege of being the host for the LMN Cardiac Diseases Network for our new video series, where I get an opportunity to meet and speak with several of our different members, where I get to hear their stories, and they offer insights and share their journeys navigating through this disease. And we have an opportunity to learn from one another. We share also stories of resilience and success stories, not just stories of struggle and difficulty, but we all go through that as well. So I would like to start by introducing one of our own members. Her name is Kris Miltenberger. Good morning, Kris. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. It's great to see you again. We spoke recently, and just to kind of discuss things a little bit and get to know each other, and that was a great pleasure to me. So you live in Sioux City, Iowa. Is that correct?
I live about 20 miles from the city. Yes.
Oh, okay. Excellent. And how's the weather there today? Last time we spoke, it was, go ahead.
Freezing rain and cold.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to report, but I live in Albuquerque, and our high today is going to be 60 and sunny.
Oh, God.
But it's kind of odd for December for us as well. I was hoping we have a little bit of snow. But anyway, I'd like to go and discuss some of the things that we shared on our last meeting. Your story is quite unique and very interesting in that you manifested some of the initial symptoms of the disease. You were not aware of what you were dealing with or that you were a LMN positive patient, but you started manifesting your disease in the skeletal muscles. So just briefly go into that as best as you can, when you started having problems, and then what led to your diagnosis.
Okay. Not knowing that what this was, of course, we did not watch for it, but I can go back to junior high, and I couldn't run, jump, squat, all that. I could not do that.
Yeah.
But we didn't think too much about it. So now I get into my early 20s, and my dad is suffering from an unknown heart disease. His brother had passed away at age 39 because his pacemaker wire broke. And then his other brother had symptoms as well. So because of that, I started getting the cardiac monitoring, and I would go every 5 years just to monitor the heart.
Sure. Okay.
And it went well. And as I progressed, of course, then the heart rate slowed down.
Sure.
Just a little at a time, nothing to be concerned about. And at that time, they also detected, in my 20s and 30s, they detected the AFib and the A flutter.
Okay.
Now, we never connected the two to the muscular dystrophy,
Yes.
because my mother had AFib. We always thought I inherited from both parents.
Sure.
Which was not the case, we're finding out. But I continued with, the weakness, and I just,
Sure.
the muscle weakness, then, couldn't run, couldn't jump, but we didn't think too much about it.
Sure. So just to recap, you said in middle school, you started having some muscular weakness. You started noticing that you weren't able to keep up with the different kids your age. And so, I assume maybe eventually that led to you getting some testing and some medical testing. Is that correct? Or did you?
That's correct. In 2002, I started to develop tingling in my feet.
Okay.
And so my doctor sent me to Rochester, to the Mayo Clinic, and they did an extensive testing and a muscle biopsy, and found that I had what they called at that time they called it the Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy, but that it was a very rare form and that maybe one other family in the world had this particular strain
Okay.
of MD. So go home and
Sure.
do what you can do.
And tell me a little bit about, as you got older, you're looking at cardiac issues in your 20s, but your muscle weakness started in middle school. So the journey between that time before you started developing cardiac issues, tell me a little bit about some of the muscular progression before you started getting checked for potential cardiac issues.
Well, I don't really remember because it was
Okay.
it was almost minor.
Okay. Okay.
I just thought my body, and I'm not a very large person,
Yes.
compared to other people, and they could do things and I couldn't, and we never knew. We never, I guess we never worried about it. I was healthy otherwise.
So you just were resilient in just acknowledging that you had some weakness, and you just adjusted your life and accommodated your activities according to that. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then in your 20s, you started having atrial fibrillation or atrial flutter, or okay, all right.
Both.
Okay. And so once you started having those issues and you started getting followed for these conduction issues, so how did things progress from there? Just tell us a little bit how things, to your recollection, how things progress from there, leading up to where we're going to get into now, what you're dealing with. Yes.
Okay. Like I said, 2002, they said the muscular dystrophy was what it was. And of course, I go to my regular doctor, and
Yes.
we decided that it would be best to just get a neurologist and just be followed. And that would have been in my 30s probably.
Okay.
So here locally, I got a neurologist, and what they tell you is muscular dystrophy, there's no cure, as we well know. Just live within that scope, don't go above that line. Don't stress your body over that line.
Okay.
And just learn to know where that boundary is.
Yes, ma'am.
So
And
then
what about the cardiac conduction issues and the progression of that?
I my heart was slowing down.
Okay. Okay.
And then let's see, my pacemaker, I got that in 2011. So as my cardiologist here in Sioux City was monitoring me, he suggested a pacemaker down the road, but not until necessary. Once you have it, that's where you are, he said. And so it got to where my Holter monitor was reporting my heart rate down in the 20s at night.
Okay.
And he says, I think you need to seriously talk about a pacemaker. So in that summer of 2011, I got my first pacemaker.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So you got your first pacemaker in 2011, and kind of give us a little bit of a timeline from 2011 on how you were after the pacemaker. Did you feel like everything was fine for quite some time? And did you have any additional symptoms, worsening of symptoms over the course of time as time progressed after that?
Okay,
Just
well,
share a little bit of that.
I will say I did feel better after having the pacemaker, because now my pace was set at 60, so it never went below 60. So I didn't have, I had the muscle fatigue. Muscle fatigue and fatigue from the cardiac are completely two different sensations.
Yes.
And
it's hard to distinguish. Okay.
Yes, definitely. And so it was more, but I felt better because I had that heart rate back up and my blood was moving. And I had that pacemaker I had clear up until 2020. So
oh wow. Okay. Did your pacemaker have an ICD, a cardioverter defibrillator? An
No,
internal defibrillator? No. Okay.
no, we
All
didn't
right.
really connect. I didn't really have any, other than the AFib, A flutter, didn't really
Yes.
detect any reason to do anything more at that time.
And you hadn't gotten the diagnosis of Lammin just yet,
Oh, no. Oh, gosh,
so
no.
there was no need for that.
We,
Okay.
no, we were still on the assumption it's muscular dystrophy, period.
Got
But
it. Okay.
a heart being a muscle, it was the heart slowing down was secondary to the muscular dystrophy. I
Sure.
lived like that for years. Lived like that for a long time.
Sure. So there was never any need for genetic testing, muscular dystrophy. They associated your conduction issues with the muscular dystrophy as well, and
Right.
still no push for get genetic testing. Even they thought maybe, well, your parents both had atrial fibrillation as well, so
Mm-hmm.
they thought you just inherited that. Okay, now, well, that's interesting. Okay, so now you have an ICD. Okay, so when do you, at the best of your recollection, when did you get that implanted, and what
Well,
led to that?
okay. Um, I have I have a very small family, but I do have family members that, of course, have the Lammin as well.
Yes.
My cousin in Minnesota, she's a few years older than me, and she had gone to Sioux Falls to have the genetics done, and she
Yes.
got a grant there that if any one of us wanted to come up and have the genetic testing, we could do that. So in the spring of 2020, I did go to Sioux Falls and had the testing done, and they were going to study it, but the grant money wasn't there, or for whatever reason, it didn't lead to anything.
Okay.
But that did come back in April of 2020 with the Lammin variant.
Okay.
And that still didn't mean anything to us because we didn't know anything about this.
Okay. So you didn't receive genetic counseling because the
No,
genetic testing wasn't particularly done through cardiologist or a medical professional that would lead you to genetic testing, genetic counseling, etc.,
right,
to
right,
understand what that diagnosis meant for you. Okay.
right,
All right. Now,
right.
it's interesting. You mentioned other family members were positive for Lammin, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. And what was the best of your recollection? What were they dealing with, and how did you know they were Lammin positive? What led to that knowledge?
Well, with the heart, there is a heart issue in our family history. We do know
Okay.
that. We didn't know what it was. My dad and his two brothers
Okay.
apparently passed from this. We don't know, but
Of course.
obviously, because Dad, I feel just like I watched him do.
Yes.
Um, but because we were concerned about our offspring, of course, I already had 3 grown boys. So
Okay.
what's
Okay.
like, are we going to have children? We were concerned about the future and what could be
Yes.
done. So
Okay.
I have a cousin, her sister passed with this, at a young age. She's just a year older than me. My sister passed away earlier this year from this disease. My oldest son has been diagnosed with this.
Sure.
So
Okay.
there are various family members. So we just decided that to look into it.
Okay. Perfect. Excellent. So you were doing well, and I after you were diagnosed with Lammin, you had a very significant setback soon after, or a little bit after the diagnosis, or years after. What was the timeline from that moment, the diagnosis, to the point where you had your significant setback, which we're going to get into here in a little bit?
Okay,
Several years.
well, no, it was just a few months, but let me just,
Oh, okay.
one small comment was,
Yes.
my cousin who passed away, the one that's about my age, she had a cardiac arrest a few years ago. And I don't believe that was ever connected either to this, even
Okay.
though she had a pacemaker. So with that said, When I was diagnosed in April of 2020, and then in December 12th, which will be 5 years tomorrow, I was fine. I was visiting family members, and I literally collapsed. And my husband caught me, and
Okay.
and I don't recall any of that, of course.
Okay.
But I collapsed, and they, my sister-in-law was there, and he was there, my brother-in-law, and they, of course, saved me until help could come.
Sure.
And they discovered that I had suffered a severe, a sudden cardiac arrest,
Got it.
and
And
that I was very fortunate that I had survived it.
so you did not have your cardioverter defibrillator at the time. So
Well,
because,
yes, I did actually.
oh, interesting. Okay.
I guess
Interesting.
we kind of missed the stuff there. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
My other cousin had gone and chatted with her insurance company and persuaded them with medical records to implant a defibrillator for her, and set precedence for us. So back in 18,
Okay.
I believe it was. I get my dates. I have so many dates.
Oh, that's okay.
2018,
Sure.
I had started to become really quite fatigued, and they determined at that point that a defibrillator probably would be in my best interest.
Okay. Okay.
But
So
this was still before my
sure.
diagnosis.
Okay. Okay. So you had an ICD, and then you got diagnosed with Lamin, from what you're saying, and then you had in December of 2020 a cardiac arrest.
Okay, let me get my dates straight. Sorry.
No, take your time. It's
Because I'm
perfectly
5
fine.
years out, so it was 2020, and
Yes.
I had this one for 3. Okay, so no, I did get the ICD. I did get the ICD days after my cardiac arrest. See,
Yes.
I did, because I had COVID at the same time as my cardiac arrest.
I see.
I still have long haul COVID symptoms, and I get my dates mixed up. So sorry about that. But 2020, that was when they determined that I needed that ICD.
Okay. Okay.
After my cardiac arrest, before they would send me home.
Okay. So
Yes, that is correct.
okay, perfect. And we all have a hard time. It's hard to remember these events. It really is. It's a challenge if we don't document things.
I do
Absolutely.
get it. I
Yeah,
do get it.
don't worry about it.
So then that's when I came home with the ICD, and which had replaced the pacemaker.
Okay. So you did not have an ICD when you had your cardiac arrest.
I did not.
Okay. And that the reason I'm asking that question is because if you had which sometimes, you had some initial symptoms of AFib, you had a basic pacemaker. Based on diagnoses and other family members, they determined it was best for you to get an ICD, but it wasn't until much later. But one of your major symptoms, your first major symptoms, was a sudden cardiac arrest.
Yes.
Okay, and you did not have the ICD, the internal defibrillator protection, which is why you passed out.
Mm-hmm.
You had your cardiac arrest. Unfortunately, there were family members there. People were around you to call EMS services or whatever happened to resuscitate you. Or tell me more about that, because I guess had you had the ICD, you wouldn't have gone through that. Very likely, you would have been shocked. And unfortunately, but I'm so happy that you survived that. We are also happy that you survived that. Not many people have that success story like you. So we're happy that you did. And so you had your cardiac arrest. So tell me more about that experience and any feelings you want to share about that experience.
Well, it was tough because in 2020, if you're in the hospital, it was the care.
COVID.
The care was fine. I commend the doctors and nurses. Of course, I was in a drug-induced coma for the first 4 days, I believe it was.
Okay.
And so I don't remember any of that, of course.
Of course. Of course.
And by choice they made. So but then on Thursday I got the ICD. Care was fantastic, but it was minimal.
Okay.
It was minimal. And of course nobody was allowed in the hospital.
Sure.
Although my husband did befriend one of the security guards and
Okay.
snuck his way in. So at least he was of good help,
Absolutely.
And so after being in the hospital for 1 week, I convinced them that I would get better care if I came home. My husband is self-employed and he can be home with me. And so he brought me home after 1 week.
That's wonderful. COVID was a very difficult time for
Oh,
many people, many of us, where we did not have the opportunity to have our family members and the
mhm.
support that is just so profound and so important when
Oh,
we're recovering from something so significant. So you came home. So, I just want to mention that one very, very key takeaway for the community that will be watching this, all of us. You had your cardiac arrest, people were around, they were able to call EMS services. Had things been different for you, had you been by yourself, had you been in a car or other scenarios, you did not have the cardioverter defibrillator implanted,
right.
your outcomes could have been significantly different and unfortunately worse. So I just want to make that a reference for those of us that are listening, the importance of
Yes,
having that protection when you have Lyme disease, because that is our significant risk, is having sudden cardiac arrest,
right.
where basically it's a conduction issue and we go into some arrhythmia where our heart just cannot sustain us. And so you would call it sudden cardiac death when people do not survive it. And
Right.
so I'm glad you did. So after the ICD implant, you have fared well. You haven't had any more episodes of shock therapies or any more significant setbacks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I recovered that winter, of course, because nobody's going anywhere.
Yes.
I recovered rather quickly, actually,
Yes.
because that's just what I do.
Yes.
And I felt, really quite good with the ICD. I had a few reports of some irregularities where maybe, the ICD was starting to gear up and get ready. But my body self-regulated it. So I never was shocked with that ICD, thankfully.
That's great.
But
That's wonderful. Mhm.
but it lasted, that ICD was up until 2022 when I started getting the fatigue again.
I see.
And it was that particular, I believe I was pacing at 70 at that time, but it just wasn't keeping me. So they determined that I needed a different piece of equipment.
A different pacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Maybe did you get the pacemaker that had extra wires in the left ventricle? Okay, so that would be possibly a biventricular pacemaker.
It is.
Okay, perfect.
And because Sioux City was not able to, I'd had those wires in there from that pacemaker since 2011, and they determined they needed to remove wires.
Okay.
And so they sent me to Omaha because of that, because of
Okay.
the need to, and the scarring and what happens around that. So I went to Omaha, the doctors in Omaha, and
Okay.
they removed the ICD, and I got a BIV with a HIS device, a HIS bundle.
Okay. Okay.
Because a little difficulty. So that's how what I have now, of course.
Sure. That seems to be kind of a standard protocol now with many of us with conduction issues, and lamin positive, an ICD, obviously a cardioverter defibrillator, internal defibrillator, and a pacemaker that has, not just your standard 2-lead pacemaker, but a third wire that synchronizes both the left and the right sides of the heart, which helps us fare better along with medication, so that our episodes or setbacks and the progression of heart disease, which what I'm hearing you started dealing with, because regardless of not having any shock episodes, which I'm glad you did not,
Right.
your heart function started to decline, but being that you had that biventricular pacemaker with the ICD, you had the protection, and you had some additional support with your pacemaker. So
Right.
it looks like you have fared very well. Now, so that's great to hear. Now, I hear that now you are getting ready to be evaluated based on your doctor's recommendations and other testing. You're going to be evaluated next month in January next year.
Right.
And you are going to be evaluated to be put on the heart transplant list, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Now, based on our last conversation, it was because they did a right heart catheterization, as they did with me and with many other people, and determining the results of that right heart catheterization, that deemed appropriate next move. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. Now, in April, in March, I had a good checkup here in Sioux City, and I was feeling great after being in the tropics for several weeks and last winter, feeling great. But by April, my energy just went downhill. It was just gone. I was lightheaded. I was dizzy. I knew something was wrong. I mean, we knew it was like almost overnight. And so I contacted, I had established myself with my heart failure doctor in 2023. And so I contacted his office. And of course, they had me come right down the next day. And so then in June, I had a right heart cath and the stress test, both the exercise, and my numbers were borderline. And at my doctor visit in August, he decided let's talk transplant, and but let's do another series. Let's do another stress test later at the end of the year. We'll do that. And so I actually had that scheduled for the end of February, because I had a 6-week tropical vacation planned again.
Okay.
And he deemed that if I felt up to it, I could still go. But as time went on, and my energy and my lightheadedness and my shortness of breath, and, I couldn't even walk up an incline without, and I've never had that shortness of breath. That is a new sensation this year for me.
Absolutely.
And so I contacted him. I canceled my vacation. They got me in at the end of November, and I retook the stress test.
Okay.
And those numbers had declined once again from June.
Okay.
And now I was not borderline, but I was within that range.
So being very preemptive, it sounds like your doctor is being very preemptive, following you closely as your disease is progression, your heart function is declining, which all of us experience, that shortness of breath, breathlessness, the fatigue, etc. So many complaints about that, and so we can relate to that. And so the reason I wanted to segue into your doctor is because you go to UNMC, is that University of Nebraska Medical Center, and your doctor's on the network's cardiologist list as Lemon experienced cardiologist and electrophysiologist. And can you tell us your doctor's name?
Yes, my doctor's name is Dr. Stoller. I actually went to him because I had changed my neurologist to UNMC several years ago. And she had, or I guess that was a gentleman, he had he kept every year saying, you probably should be seeing this doctor. And I
Sure.
kept putting it off. I felt fine putting it off. And in 2022, I decided that, yes, I needed to probably see what more, because we're still under the assumption that it's based on muscular dystrophy with no cure. And so I got in, he recommended me to Dr. Stoller. And so I saw him in July of 2023. So he's been monitoring me annually.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, during your experience with heart disease, did you ever receive any cardioversions or ablations, or did you receive any of these procedures?
I've had no ablations. They determined that they wouldn't know where to start and they wouldn't know where to stop. That was how they said it to me. But I have had, I believe, because part of it was when I was still not feeling well from my cardiac arrest, I think I've had 5 cardioversions. And I live approximately 25 minutes from where I had that procedure done. And I don't believe that the cardioversion worked even the 25-minute trip home.
Sure. Yes. And unfortunately, another takeaway from personal experience and from many of the patients and known research that ablation procedures and cardioversions with us are very temporary. And, the significant benefit is that when you are with a LMN experienced cardiologist and they understand the disease, its progression, they understand the limitations to it as well, as far as procedure limitations, doing multiple ablation procedures. And I'm saying this from personal experience, that it creates more and more scarring to the heart, which actually increase, from personal experience, the onset of more and more conduction issues and ventricular arrhythmias and atrial arrhythmias and ICD shocks, etc. So, that's the benefit of having the doctor that you do. So he knows, from very well how to treat this disease, and understands it. So that's just another takeaway that I want to discuss with you and your story and my story, for others that may be listening, that ablation procedures and cardioversion procedures are very temporary. Cardioversions do not cause scarring to the heart. It's a shock treatment. It doesn't scar the heart like an ablation does, so that's good to know. It's a very difficult balance because, an ablation procedure can definitely terminate a conduction disorder, but it's going to be temporary. And sometimes it comes back, from personal experience, in months or a year later, or even in a matter of hours. So that's a message to the community, and a message as well that we are all trying to educate ourselves about. So excellent. Now, if you are comfortable, you said you had 3 sons.
Yes.
Would you like to share anything about them and have they been tested, or anything you feel comfortable sharing would be wonderful.
Let's see. The 3 boys, of course, all grown. My oldest son, he sees his doctor at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and they follow him quite regularly. Now he has had an ablation just recently.
Yes.
And is doing well.
Good.
We have found with whatever our family deals with, my generation, it showed up earlier. With this next generation, it's not showing up. Symptoms are not showing up until late 30s, early 40s.
Sure.
And he didn't really have any symptoms, but he had some, tests, his physical done, and they had seen some irregularities there. That's where and they've been watching him, and they've just recently had ablation. So, but, and my middle son is inconclusive, but he's still keeping track of how he does. And my youngest son is negative for that, thankfully. So
that is okay. Well, that's good. That's good. All right. Well, We are also very happy that you have done so well, and you seem to have adjusted to everything very resiliently. You seem to have great family support. You have a great network of support, and you have our support, the network support, and the members as well. And we're doing these videos so that we can share with one another and offer education and insights. And of course, your story is one of resilience, I would say, because of the way you handled your muscular issues. And it's a message of the necessity for an ICD, an
Mhm.
cardioverter defibrillator, for us that are Lamin positive with conduction issues, because of your story. And then, of course, you have a Lamin experienced cardiologist that you're working with, and that has helped you fare well and have had less traumatic experiences with medical procedures and multiple procedures and testing, etc. It seems like your progression and your treatment approach has been very proactive instead of reactive, which is wonderful. That's great to hear. So uh, anything else that you would like to share with me or with the community? And if there's nothing more, you've shared so much that has been so helpful to all of us. We really appreciate it. But I just want to give you the opportunity to share anything else that you would like to add.
Uh, I would. The belonging to this group has been very informative. It's my niece, who also suffers from this disease. She is a member, as well as my son, and so they
Yes.
do follow. But a lot of good information, because there is not a lot of information out there,
Yes.
and so it's been a great tool. With the webinars and things that I've watched, it's been very good. And I guess maybe one other thing is, you've got to advocate for yourself. You've got to learn and find out and get your sources and do your research and see what's out there. I wish I had started sooner, but we didn't know we had what we had.
Yes.
Advocate for yourself and really just you've got to keep moving too,
Sure.
especially with the muscular dystrophy side of it. You've got to keep moving,
Yes.
because my dad we did not know what was wrong with him, and he literally sat in a chair for 2 years. And as easy as that would be for me to do, I refuse.
Sure.
You've got to you got within your physical capabilities.
Yes.
I've had to adjust my way of life this year,
Sure.
because I'm not one to sit still. I'm out. If it's over there to be done, I'm going to get up and do it.
Sure.
And now I'm starting to pay the price.
I see. I
So
see.
but you've got to keep moving. That's a
Sure. So, advocation and
mhm.
advocating for yourself, educating yourself can be very empowering, and it could change our mindset to a more positive mindset, which is very significant. Our mindset is extremely important, as we get
Yes,
through this disease and navigate through some of the difficulties and some of the emotional stuff that we have to deal with understanding that we have an incurable disease. So thank you for adding that. That's definitely profound. It is a very important to have that mindset and to educate ourselves. And of course, this is why we're doing this. We're trying to bring this information and education for anybody who's watching, and hopefully get more and more members to become part of our network, so that we can
right.
bring this to as many people as possible. Excellent.
Alfredo, can I say just one other thing?
Absolutely.
I've had some friends say, well, how, heart transplant, how that's frightening. And it is. However, my mindset is such that I had an incurable disease, muscular dystrophy. And then
Yeah.
in 2020, I find out that I have another incurable disease. And when Dr. Stoller told me a year ago that I could potentially be a heart transplant recipient, I just, at first it startled me, of course, because why put a perfectly good organ in a muscle diseased body? And he says, why not? And my outlook on this is I see this as I've now been given an opportunity to extend my life. And I never had that before.
Sure.
And so I see that as a ray of hope. It will be definitely a road to be on for a while. But it gives me life, and it gives me longer life than not. So I look at it as a positive thing.
Sure. I love your attitude. That's
I
wonderful.
want to stick around. I've got grandkids, and I've got things to do. So
yes, grandmas are extremely important, and mothers are extremely important. So you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a grandmother, and we can live very good quality lives dealing with muscle weakness, but we do need a healthy heart to continue living. So you have all of our support, and in your evaluations upcoming next month, and you're listing for a transplant. And if and when that time comes that you get the transplant, you can extend your life expectancy significantly, which is wonderful. And so that's great news. Speaking with you, it's been very inspiring. It's been very positive, and it seems like you have dealt with everything with great resilience, and that's wonderful, and that's something that it's good to share amongst our community, because those of us that have recently been diagnosed or are dealing with family members or our children who are diagnosed, it's a very difficult acknowledgement and something to take in, that you're told that you have an incurable disease that will progress into something that you'll have to deal with for the rest of your life, and eventually probably in some instances end up with a heart transplant like you are going to be and I had in the past. So yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and thank you once again from the Lamb and Cardiac Diseases Network for sharing your story, for all of the members, and for having the courage to be here and just talking about yourself and sharing everything. We all know that you do it for all of us. And so we just want to say we are grateful and much gratitude to you and your family. And we all wish you the best. And we look forward to hearing more about your story through the network and the Facebook page, etc.
Thank you, Alfredo. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And if I can help one person, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and you will help more than one person. That's great to hear. So before I close, I just want to send another message to the community. We would like to send an invitation to any other members within this community who would like to or be willing to share their stories, offer, not just a difficult story that we need to hear everything, we'd like to hear everything, but also your challenges, how you overcame things, how you're living your life, the things that you're facing. Maybe we can offer support through the network if you share your story. And also, so many of us have some great insights to offer each other based on our own personal experiences. That we can educate one another, we can bring knowledge to one another, like we just indicated, that knowledge, self-advocacy, and education is so important to empower us and to lead us in the right direction to get the appropriate treatments and have great outcomes and the highest quality of life that we possibly can. So if anybody would like to share, please just reach out through the Cardiac Network website, and email us to the LMNA-cardiac.org, and I would reach out to you as I did with Kris, and it's just been just a joy to meet Kris here as well. So thank you once again, Kris. We're going to go ahead and sign off now,